since I became chair of Marketing Humber, one of the best things I've seen that we've actually achieved is actually the young people associated with us setting up their own young talent network. And I think we'll all learn quite a lot from this over the next few minutes. So Billie, over to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you so much to everyone that's spoken so far. It's been very insightful. I think what Justine said about sort of the Humber being the heart of the country's transformation is spot on, really. And I think we have to kind of think of the longevity of that. I came across a statistic yesterday about IKEA, who actually forward plan 400 years in advance, which is a bit mind-blowing to think, really. But they don't just sort of think of the next generation and the generation after that. They think about what is to come in hundreds of years. And I think that's really important, and we have to do the same for this region. So Hull College's plan there to have those programs in place that goes in line with that systematic approach. And I am really passionate about this region. So just to kind of go over who I am. I'm Billie Mcloughlin. I grew up in this region. My mum's from this region. My dad isn't. My dad is from Liverpool. And I love it here, and I have never had any intentions to leave. And with that in mind, it was a tough time leaving school, seeing all your friends off the pot all over the country. And I had applied to go to university in a different city and was fortunate enough to get an apprenticeship in something completely unrelated to what I'd applied to. And I thought, do you know what, I'll give it a bash. If I don't like it, it's not the end of the world. I could then reapply to university next year and, you know, catch up with everybody then. So I felt like there was several options available. I took an apprenticeship in accountancy at a local firm, and they only had 12 staff at the time, and they were taking apprentices, which was brilliant. And then from that, I've managed to stay in the region and move on to a senior role in another practice. Just an indication of how inspiring employers can be. When I went for my interview at Sowerby, the partner said to me, "Where do you want to be in 5-10 years' time?" As they always do in an interview. And I was sort of going around the houses. I'm quite an ambitious person. And he obviously understood where I was going with it. And he just said, "Don't be frightened to say you want my seat." And I thought, oh my gosh, how amazing that even in an interview, somebody is telling me that they're going to support me to potentially, you know, progress to the highest point within the organisation. So I think that is a really sort of positive thing that we have in this area, and I really wouldn't want to well, I'm always boasting about things like that in Humber region. I love it, and I've seen plenty of friends come back after they've been to university. Just to touch on Anya's points, I know there was some quite shocking statistics in there, and Natasha, who asked the question, she's part of Hull Children's University. The work they do is fantastic of disadvantaged people, and you know, the route I've taken, it is available to anybody. You know, apprenticeships are great, and it is available to anybody, and I think that's what's important. So I'm going to move on now and move on to the Young Talent Network, the first speaker. I think for me, it's really, really important that organisations are thinking about recruiting young talent for so many reasons. What we have to remember is young people are very innovative, they're creative, a word I always struggle to say, but philanthropists. You know, we've grown up in a generation that idolises David Attenborough, so sustainability and all the rest of it is almost embedded within us. How many of you have maybe got a camera or something and gone to get the instruction book out, and then your son or daughter or niece or nephew have come across and just picked up the camera and just started taking pictures because they just get it? Technology and that, it just comes natural to us. So I'm going to introduce Sophie. So Sophie Lee, she grew up in Hull. She went away to university, to Leeds University, and then came back to fulfill her career. She took a year work experience in this region, went back to finish her university degree, and then came back and took a job at Shared Agenda, which is part of the Sewell organisation. So Sophie was applying for jobs down south because I think there isn't almost a mindset that you have to go to bigger cities to succeed. And I think Sophie would agree with me, that's kind of what gets ingrained into you. But since joining Shared Agenda, 3 years ago when she graduated. She's progressed to be an assistant development manager and now a consultant. So I'm going to just go through a few questions of Sophie, just so that you all get a bit of a feel for her story. So when you've come back to this region and everything, Sophie, so what inspired you to take that path to come back to the Humber after finishing your degree?
Thanks, Billie. So obviously I grew up in this region, and speaking to others at university, it made me realise what a great place this area is to live and the affordability of living in the area. And I do really love the region and everything it has to offer, sort of that work-life balance. And growing up in this area, I've seen how it's developed, and I just wanted to stick around and see what was next, really. I felt the opportunities in the area were good for my career, that I wanted to pursue sort of in planning and development. And as you've said, I didn't really have that desire to move to a big city or move down south. And then, yeah, working for Shared Agenda, I was aware of sort of the work that they did through some work experience I did with them while I was at school. And then coming towards the end of my degree in 2018, I saw that they were advertising for a graduate development manager. So obviously I applied and was lucky enough to get the opportunity to become a graduate with them. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity to work for a company where I'd be given lots of opportunity. And I wasn't in a graduate role with a large company and just going through the motions of sort of a graduate pathway, and I'd really have that opportunity to shape my role at the company.
So what would you say has been your who or what has sort of been your greatest support for you to take this step?
I think in contrast to quite a few young people, I was quite sort of decisive from a fairly young age to sort of when I was going into sixth form of the pathway that I wanted to take, and I always knew sort of the industry that I wanted to work in. But I'd say that one of the greatest supports that I've had was the opportunity to gain experience, firstly in terms of my work experience while I was at school in an industry that I wanted to pursue, but then also when I undertook my internship, and that was at a local company who are called Local Transport Projects. They're based in Beverley, and that really helped me to like make my decision about the industry and the environment I wanted to work in. And it really affirmed my decision to not work for a large national organisation, and really feel that value in the personal approach in a workplace, and pursuing a career in a smaller family organisation that provide good opportunities for progression.
So work experience is probably one of the biggest opportunities for you. Would you say there have been any other big opportunities, and what would you say has probably been your biggest obstacles to getting to where you are now?
I think probably the biggest obstacle so far was finding that internship opportunity. So as you said, I did apply to some large national internship schemes, but I just didn't feel, I didn't have the passion. I didn't feel that that would be the right journey for me. And obviously I was really lucky to be offered an internship year at a company within this region, and I'm grateful for the opportunities that they gave me, and they gave me that experience. They took me on when I had no experience in a working environment. And then I'm also really grateful to Shared Agenda, who I work for at the moment, because they really focus on that hiring for attitude and mindset and cultural fit. And I wasn't dismissed because I didn't necessarily have the experience in that sector. And I think that's quite a big thing, so a key focus on hiring graduates and apprentices, and the fact that you're not investing in people that might not necessarily have the skills that you're looking for, but you're hiring because they're willing to learn those skills, and you've already got the staff that are able to help support them to grow and develop. But it's about their passion and their willingness to learn, really.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think quite often you hear people saying they want experience, but then you can't get the experience because everywhere you apply to wants the experience, and it's kind of just a cycle of rejection. Often I've seen that. So I understand definitely, and I think with our generation there are a lot of unteachable skills that people of our age probably have. So it's about sort of cashing in on those unteachable skills and then teaching that experience later on. So obviously you've progressed really quickly at Shared Agenda. You've done really well so far. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Is there a plan ahead?
there is a sort of plan. Obviously, I'm pretty open. I'm still pretty early in my career, but I do really love what I do at the moment. So working across the strategy and developments teams within Shared Agenda. And I really love sort of the ethos and culture of the company. So I'd really like to think that I'd be able to stay at the company to progress my career. And again, yeah, I'd love to progress in the business. And I definitely think that it's the company where I've got the opportunity to do that. Because Shared Agenda really do focus on developing their own and hopefully in the future taking on more graduates as they have done since I started, and that'll allow me to progress my career. And yeah, the company they're really passionate about personal development for employees, and the fact that success is earned with hard work and determination. And it's not necessarily based on how many years experience you've got in that industry or how long you've been at the company. And I'd really like to hope that in future I can obviously pass on that knowledge that I'm building at the moment to future graduates. So I think that's where I see myself as sticking in the company, but sort of helping future generations as well, and supporting them with the experiences that I've had over the past few years.
Helping the new Sophies come through. Thank you so much. Yeah, we are taking questions. So if anybody does have any that they would like to put to any of the panelists, please would you pop them in the question and answer box. So now I'm going to move on to Judith. So Judith was a refugee girl and an inspiring entrepreneur. From a young age, she knew that she wanted to be in business. And unfortunately, like many people this year, due to the pandemic, Judith unfortunately lost her job. But instead of dwelling on it, she's seen this as an opportunity to now start the business she's always wanted to. And she's currently working with Making a Change for Careers to progress that plan and start up her business. So hi, Judith. Thank you so much for joining us. So obviously you said that you always wanted to be in business. What has spurred you on to actually start your own? Because obviously there's a difference between being in business and running your own.
Well, Billie, when I was about 7 or 8 in the refugee camp, I used to help my mom out in the market to sell fish and rice. And I really enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed the interactions with customers and just that sense of responsibility to succeed. So that kind of stuck with me. So throughout my education, I studied business because in my mind, if I was going to run a business someday, I needed, the knowledge. Don't get me wrong, the business studies can be boring at times. However, in college, I got involved in this Young Enterprise Challenge where we got to set up a company selling t-shirts, and I thoroughly enjoyed that experience, and that kind of confirmed that becoming my own boss wasn't just a childhood dream anymore. I could actually make it a reality someday. And so initially, I wasn't sure about what kind of business I wanted to run, but now I know I want to go into the food industry because I'm one of those people you call a foodie. And so I love trying out different cuisines. And so I want to turn that love of food into a business.
That's fantastic. So from quite humble beginnings, which is amazing. So would you say there's any specific person or organisation perhaps in this region that has sort of helped you out a lot or supported you a lot on your journey so far?
Definitely. I'm quite fortunate to have a supportive family as well. But also, as you mentioned earlier, when I was looking for mentorship, I came across Making Changes for Careers, and they've played a huge role in helping me develop my business idea so far. I'm currently working with an experienced mentor as well, who gives me practical advice that helps me to think about my business in reality. And on the financial side as well, I received a grant from the John Cracknell Youth Enterprise Bank that went towards some of the training that I needed. And also the business support team at Hull Libraries, they've been very, very helpful.
Oh, that's really, really good to hear. So what made you pick the Humber region then? Do you think, what is it about the Humber region that makes you want to start a business here?
I grew up mostly in Hull. I feel like I'm a Hull lass. And I believe the Humber region has great potential for business growth. There's a lot of support, as well as I mentioned earlier, for business startups, which gives me the confidence and other young entrepreneurs that, you know, if we set up a business here, we can succeed.
Yeah, that's great. So with you say even food, you might want to tell us a little bit more, you might not, but obviously the future for the business is, you know, it could be potentially restaurants. Where do you see the business being? And it's sort of a similar question to Sophie in about 5 years' time.
Well, Billie, one thing that I've learned from this pandemic is that I have to be adaptable when looking at future goals. However, my hope is that the business becomes a success, which, you know, would fulfill my dream of becoming a successful businesswoman. And also just the kind of help I've received now, I want to become a mentor to aspiring entrepreneurs in the future, kind of give back the help that I am receiving right now.
That's really, really nice. It's nice that you want to give back to the community. So thank you so much for joining us, Judith. And yeah, if you have any questions, we'll come back to you. So thank you so much. So next up, we've got Sam. So we've tried to cover all bases here. We've had Sophie, obviously, who was a university student and came back. Judith, who has stayed in the region and is an entrepreneur. And Sam, who has done an apprenticeship and is currently studying towards that. So whilst at school, Sam was an ambassador for an anti-bullying campaign. So he's obviously got fantastic morals and ethics. And he completed his work experience in mechanical and electrical engineering and a few other work experiences, I believe, at places such as Centrica. So from this work experience, Sam decided that he knew he wanted to do an apprenticeship in engineering. And then after leaving school, chose to accept an apprenticeship at Drax power station. So you are currently studying, I believe, to do your BTEC level 3, which is fantastic. And I just wondered kind of what inspired you to take the path. Obviously, the work experience must have been a big part of that, but what inspired you as a whole?
I think I've always been interested in that sort of field. With regards to engineering, I've always been interested in that. So from a very young age, I always wanted to do something with regards to that. I was lucky in the fact that I got so much work experience because I did mainly mechanical experience, but I also did electrical engineering operations as well. But I always enjoyed the mechanical the most, and I knew I wanted to do something with my hands as well because growing up, I always enjoyed being outside. I mean, the classroom does have a great place, but I always enjoyed being outside, actually doing hands-on and learning practically. So that's kind of where I always thought I wanted to go with my job.
I love that because I think that really does emphasize how important it is to almost not put everybody in the same box. You know, classroom learning, as much as it's vital, it doesn't always suit everybody, and it's not always the most enjoyable for everybody. So when it came to, you know, time to apply for your apprenticeship, where did you see the availability for that apprenticeship? Sort of who made you aware of that, and did you get any support through the process to get you to that sort of employment position?
Yeah, definitely. I had a lot of support from all my family. I'm lucky in the fact that my dad works for Centrica, so that was mainly where I got a lot of my work experience from. He's a mechanical engineer, so I got that experience. So and he knows sort of the big companies around here, so I applied for a lot of different companies, Drax being one of them, BAE, HETA, Humber Engineering Training Association. So I applied to a lot around this area because I think as well is we're lucky within this area because if you want to go into this sort of field, there are, particularly out towards Stallingborough, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of big companies out there looking to take on apprentices.
Yeah. So would you, obviously the work experience would have been a big opportunity for you, and it kind of, a bit like Sophie's, kind of solidified exactly where you wanted to go. Would you say there's been any standout opportunities that have helped you? And is there anything that you feel has maybe hindered the process so far, maybe any obstacles that have got in the way?
Um, I wouldn't say there's been really anything that's hindered. Again, I think definitely the work experience helps, because if you can get that experience behind you, not only do you get to solidify what you want to do, but whereas with me, what I did when I did it, I took photos of everything and then I wrote up everything that I did. So when I went to places such as Drax or Heta and you get interviews, you can then say, whilst I was only 16, I had a lot of experience behind me compared to what a lot of other people would. So I can add that to my CV and take that to interviews. And I think by being very proactive, it definitely helps set you up for the future.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. When you say having that experience, obviously, probably, you know, it made you stand out probably against any other candidates as well. Which I guess, you know, was there any reason that you applied to those businesses? And obviously you said your dad worked for Centrica. Was there anything, did perhaps your school encourage you to go to specific businesses depending on the sector that you were interested in?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is with other schools, but our school, we had job advisors, work experience advisors. We had a lot of different companies come in and say, this is basically just hand out and say, this is what we've got to offer and this is what we want you to do. So which helps as well, because it sets that career path and it shows what you want to do with regards and what you need to take, which is particularly helpful, especially when it comes to choosing your options for GCSE, because I was lucky really, because I already knew what I wanted to do. I've known from being very young what I wanted to do, so it was I knew exactly what options I needed to take, whereas for other people who maybe aren't as sure, it's more difficult time, because instead of just taking options that set them up for an exact job, they've got to then take options that set them up for a wider field because they're not quite sure what they want to do. Which I suppose comes back to what was being said earlier about talking to young pupils, not just at secondary, but also at primary, and helping them understand what they enjoy doing and maybe what jobs would be available and how to get there and that career path.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer as well, like, you know, generally you are good at what you enjoy doing. So if you almost get forced down a specific route and you don't necessarily enjoy it, probably won't be as good at it, because you channel your energy into what you enjoy. So what does life look like after the apprenticeship then, Sam? So say, again, sort of 5 years from now, will the apprenticeship be over, and where do you see yourself at that point?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm only a year and a half into a 4-year apprenticeship, so I've still got 2.5 years left yet. So the plan short term is to complete my apprenticeship and get taken on by Drax. One of the reasons I went there was because they had a very good retention rate. So there's vast majority of the apprentices that they've had over the years have all been taken on and given jobs. So that's the first priority. And then after that, just more see where my career takes me after that.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I think that kind of concludes the question. I think we've got one in the question and answer panel, so I'll just have a quick look. So I'm gonna pass, because Sam and Judith were so short. Obviously, all three of you seemed very decisive on what you wanted to do quite early on in your sort of educational career. This question is what advice you would give and recommend to others that are not really sure what they want to do. So if anybody would like to take that question, feel free to unmute yourself. I know it's difficult to put yourself in someone else's shoes if you were so decisive.
I don't mind. One thing that I could say is that be open-minded to try different things. And when I was at uni, a lot of people who came in like to come and give us advice on careers, they didn't end up in the field that they studied. So somebody could have studied science and they were business managers. So just have an open mind and don't worry about it, because what you end up studying, it might not be what you end up in career-wise. So that's what I would give advice.
Yeah, good advice. I think it's important as well to know that it's not really a race to get there. So as I said, I took an apprenticeship straight from school at 17, and I kind of thought, well, if it doesn't work, there's still a lot of options. I'm only 17, and there is quite a lot of pressure on young people at sixth form to know what they want to do for the rest of their life. And as depressing as this sounds, at the age of 17, you still should have around 50 years of working in you. So it's very daunting at 17 to think, what am I going to be doing for the next 50 years? And it, you know, as Kate's quite kindly pointed out earlier, you know, a lot of people at the age of 50 are now having to be reskilled. So it's important to know that it's never too late to reskill. It's never too late to be a mature student at university. So I agree, Judith. It's about sort of giving it a go and see how you get on. We do have another question here. Our region is experiencing an immense period of growth and will play a key role in building back better post-COVID. Do you feel this will bring more opportunities for our next generation? And do you think this is being communicated by our businesses? So Sam, obviously with the industry you're in, that is quite a big growth area. Do you think this is going to present a lot of opportunities to the next generation? Yeah,
definitely. I know Drax has been taking on quite a lot of apprentices recently, and so have other companies. And there's a lot of, like with HETA, the Humber Engineering Training Station, they take a lot of apprentices on and do the training and then find companies for them. So there's associations like that to help young people get into jobs. And they've got quite a lot of big companies. I believe Phillips 66 is one of them, that are all part of that. So there's definitely, even if you didn't go straight to a company and say, I want to work for this company doing this job, you could find a job through somewhere like her and say, this is what I enjoy doing, study that, and then they'll help you write CVs, do interviews and everything, and then get a job within a company that's going to support you, not just for your apprenticeship, but to develop and progress your career once you're through your apprenticeship.
Really important for those businesses to be communicating with the learning providers that they are taking on people and that they are open to employing people that are graduating from those type of learning establishments. Do you agree, Sophie? Do you think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities come in? I know obviously you're going to be guarding them through.
Yes, I think there are. I think more recently, definitely, I've seen a lot more apprenticeships and graduate opportunities in this area. I think a few years ago, we were a bit sort of behind the curve in terms of offering those graduate opportunities and internship opportunities and just opportunities for young people to get experience. But I think more recently, it's definitely sort of coming to fruition, the support that local businesses are offering. And I think at the moment, especially with young people and the big period of time they've missed out on education for, it's knocked quite a few of them's confidence. So I think being able to offer these opportunities for them to gain some experience and really support them in starting their career, I think that's a big thing that all companies can really focus on at the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm quite an advocate for the social interaction as well. And I think we've missed out a lot this year. And if getting somebody in those environments and allowing them to mix with other people, that will hopefully increase that confidence that you're talking about that may have been knocked throughout the pandemic. Kirsty's asked the question and she said, do you think that students at school understand the full range of opportunities for them in the Humber? And is there anything more that can be done? I know, Sam, you said that there was a great careers advice at your school. You know, Judith, did you have any sort of experience of people coming at you with the opportunities that were out there? I know you were quite set in your ways of what you wanted to do, but did you feel like there was a lot of information about the opportunities that were available?
I think when I was young at secondary school, no, but by the time I was at college, you did have a lot more companies come in to kind of show like events, host events to kind of show the career paths, you know, young people can take, whether it's, like you said, apprenticeship route or uni or stuff like that. But at secondary school, no. So it's something that I could, you know, suggest to showcase, you know, from a young age, like when they're doing the GCSEs, to kind of start giving them options to see which kind of route they can take, especially for those who are unsure. You know, if you plant an idea in their mind, they might start thinking about it, and more young kids kind of focus on, you know, building a career for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Sam, so if you don't know about your experience, but I found that it felt a lot at school like there was almost one route to each destination. So if you said you wanted to be in a specific industry or in a specific role, there wasn't really a lot of options. I know when I was in sixth form, it was very frowned upon that I didn't actually go to university. It was like that was the only option, and it's you almost felt like you hadn't achieved because you didn't go. So I think there needs to be a lot more communication in how you can progress to different places but via different routes. You know, I could work alongside someone in the exact same role as me that did it through a university application, whereas I took the apprenticeship route, and we could be sat in exactly the same position. And I think that is something that probably does need to be communicated. I don't know if Sophie, Sam, you wanted to add anything. This is going to be
yeah, definitely. I think by opening up and saying there's more than one route, people would also maybe help get into employment and understand what role they want or what job they wanted to go in the future. I know I still know quite a lot of my friends still at college still really don't know what they want to do. It feels almost they're just taking courses because they still don't know what they want to do when they get a job for the rest of their life, which is why I say I was really lucky. I know one friend who he didn't know what he wanted to do, so he just went back, and he really enjoyed farming when he was young, so now he's studying farming and loves it, and that's where he wants to go, because it was the same. He just didn't know where to go, didn't know what career path to take, so he just fell back on what he really enjoyed when he was young, and now he's loving it, and that's where he wants to go with a job. So something as simple as that, instead of just pushing and saying you want to do this job, then you need to follow this path. I think definitely by communicating more and finding out what people actually enjoy, and then use that to advise them, and let them find what they want to do themselves as well. But then they can discover it in themselves, and then they'll want to go and achieve more.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So that's going to be our last question. Thank you so much. I know there are two others in the chat box. Just the best thing about living in the region, please check social media. There are some fantastic groups out there that help support other young people in the region. Reach out to any of us panelists. I'm sure all of us wouldn't mind connecting with any young people that are thinking about moving here. It is a great place to be. And as for support, there are support within the colleges and universities, and there are some brilliant contacts there. So thank you so much for being part of the panel, Sophie, Sam and Judith. It's been really, really insightful, and I'm sure everybody has taken a lot from it. So I'm going to be passing over to Bill to close out, and thanks again for all the speakers.
Thanks very much, Billie, for showing me how to chair a session. That's really good. And thank you all to your brilliant panel for superb insight into their career and development journey.